because I'm recording.
Okay, it's good. Okay, recording in progress. So you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm
I
good.
don't know which one it's recording on, maybe both of ours. I don't know how to work on OBS or to be recording on the
I
one.
think I'm recording, so that's good. That's good.
Okay, I can always edit this private talk between us. All right, so young lady, being the star of the VNA show, okay, what made you decide to go into politics?
Well, Western alienation, right? So let's talk about this. Basically, we have a federal government that has enacted hostile policies. We have, we have Bill 48, we have Bill C-69. Essentially, what these bills say is that we cannot put any more pipelines in the ground, and we are going to limit the amount of tanker traffic that is going off of our Vancouver port. So we are essentially, restricting our oil output. We know that we have some of the largest oil reserves in the world. We know that our oil is ethical. We know that our GHG emissions have decreased. So, and these sort of policies have really dampened our economy. And we know that our federal government is shooting for a net zero, which is a pipe dream, towards 2050. They say that they're going to phase out fossil fuels by 2050. I'm sorry, nobody is going to phase out fossil fuels entirely. This is a pie in the sky, feel good sort of dream that they're chasing. And meanwhile, we know that Alberta's oil and gas economy contributes over 10% of our nominal GDP every single year. 10% comes
Do you
from this
do you
province.
do you think, Andrea, that the kid, young lad, young Trudeau there, do you think that because his family started oil and gas, he's got a little bit of guilt on him? I aren't trying to make him look like he's got a conscience or anything, but that might be why he's so against it. You know,
Well, I
it
mean,
doesn't make sense when most of the federal taxes are coming from the West, from the oil and gas industry. You know, Hydro Quebec doesn't pay the taxes that the oil industry does or contribute to the economy.
no. And I mean, well, this is the part of the problem and why we feel alienated here and why we need this movement is because, Quebec has a hydroelectric sector. It's where they get a lot of their energy. But for some reason, they're sort of exempted from being counted. Their hydroelectric is not counted as sort of an energy source the same way that Alberta's is, say, counted. And so this is how we end up, doing these equalization transfers to Quebec to the tune of $13 billion every year. Well, I'm sorry, why does one source of energy generation get to be exempted and another province is, gets to pay into equalization, right? And so this is sort of the unfairness that we see. And ultimately, there's a huge demand for, a voice in the West. We know that the Bloc Québécois has been wildly successful for getting what they want in Quebec. We know that they've had a lot of power, particularly this year. They've cut a lot of deals. We see them doing things like voting with Trudeau to shut down ethics investigations. And then, bam, a couple of hours later, the next day, we'll see a funding announcement come out, for Premier Legault. And so I started to look at this and I was like, well, I mean, everybody wants to form government. That's most parties' goal, right? Everybody wants to form government. That's what the Conservative Party wants to do. That's what the Liberal Party wants to do. That's what the NDP wants to do. And they feel that they have to do this to play the game, right? And to play the game, you need Ontario and Quebec seats. There's 199 seats in Ontario and Quebec. And to play the game and to form government, you have to appease those 199 seats.
Especially eastern ones.
Yeah, but I started to look at the block and I thought, you know what? What if you don't need to win to play the game? What if you just need enough seats to get in there and have enough power to make people want to make deals with you? And then you make sure that those deals benefit your region. And I started to think about this.
In Canada, that thought train works. In the States, it doesn't work as much. The independents don't have the same chance in the states that they do. Occasionally, you get one in there, two in there. It's more so in the state legislatures than you do in the federal government.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so, and we've had an enormous amount of uprising provincially within Alberta talking about separation. But I mean, ultimately, it's been some years before since we've had a federal party that was sort of willing to go to bat for the West. And so the last federal party that was formed that was willing to go to bat for the West was the Reform Party, led by Preston Manning. So their first election, 0 seats were elected. That's fine. They didn't give up. They kept fighting. The next election, they sent 52 MPs to Ottawa, right? Out of 338 seats. That is a decent chunk of voting power.
I noticed one thing that the independent candidates that mingle with the people, like Charles Ladoff, he's a reporter, he's not a journalist. He goes there and mingles with the people. He drinks with the people. He talks to them. He functions with them. He does things with them. That's the way. And you're a very popular person. That's when our directors found you. She found you because you were popular on Twitter and you got a large following, and so people follow you. You make a lot of sense when you talk. Some people try to ridicule you, but that's to be expected in any sort of commentary or political or social commentary. People will criticize you. Stand up to that pretty well. Although Amy said you've had your moments when you're ready to throw in the towel, and I see that you're going at it. Where do you think the root of all this thought comes from? It's been decades, in my opinion, it's been decades and decades of open society type infiltration into our educational system, Confucius Institutes, and it puts this thought there through decades and decades of infiltration. They're doing it on purpose. George Soros is, in my opinion, one of the most evil creatures that ever was. He was raised by the Nazis, and that wokeism is go there. And people think Canadians are good-hearted. Most Americans are too, especially in the rural areas. And they're thinking, I want to do the best for my country. I want to do the best for the environment. But I see, if people do the research, that some of these things are harebrained schemes. They're well-intended. Even Justin Trudeau may be well-intended deep down. But the thing is that when they do these schemes, they don't do the research to make it viable. What are they going to do with all the refuse of this green technology and everything? It's going to clutter up the environment. To get the materials to build it, they're going to have all kinds of child labor. I don't think we're technologically capable of doing that. So we have to, and Alberta's been great. It's been doing so much to make a clean oil and everything. And actually, some people have said that if Alberta was to just secede and becoming the 51st state there, then all those rules that Biden and Trudeau's trying to do would be, moot, because the federal laws in the states decree that, if you're a state, you're allowed to do, this under federal guidelines and federal laws. You can flow out all you want. You wouldn't even need a damn pipeline, And then actually, sometimes other people that I've talked to in the political realm, they've said that, sometimes you got to play hardball and just say, okay, you want to play these games with us? We're cut off the oil that's flowing there, to shut down, line 5, or do what you have to do, which Whitmer kind of wants to do anyways. But, that's an argument between nations there. And when a nation makes agreement, just some state governor can't say, hey, we're cutting down the agreement, because it's hurting society, North American society across the board. Anyway, so what's your plan for the future campaign? How are you going to approach the people?
Well, I mean, I think the people are ready. They're very approachable already. I haven't had any doors locked in my face. People are sort of hungry for this sort of movement, and they're very open to it, much like the alienation that was felt in the late 1980s. Ultimately, we know that the government is going to continue to sort of enact these policies, which is going to hurt Western economies. And we know that the Conservatives are not going to stick up for us anymore. How do we know that? Well, we know that Aaron O'Toole flip-flopped on the carbon tax immediately, right? He said, no, we're not going to do a carbon levy. We're not going to do a carbon levy. And then, the moment that he was pressed, he flipped and he said, no, we're going to do a carbon levy. He calls it a levy, not a tax. But and it is what it is. It's tax.
It was more like a social credit system. I didn't like it myself.
Yeah, it's like a Petro Points card, right?
Exactly.
I mean, like
He come up with a couple good statements today. Candace Malcolm mentioned it. You know, he said, "Well, okay, I'm not going to go on my original agreement that I'm going to totally abolish the CBC." Basically, that's in essence that's what he's saying before. Now he's saying he's going to review it and see the best way to reform it or something to that order. I didn't catch all of it because sometimes when old two talks, you don't understand what the hell he's saying. It's
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the first things I'll try to think. One of the first things he did is he went to Quebec when he was elected House leader of the Conservative Party. He went to Quebec. He talked to Legault, and he said, "You know what?
oh my
If
God!
you don't even get me going, right?" But he said, "You know what? If you don't want Energy East running through Quebec, I'm not going to force it." And so right there, that told me everything that I needed to know. I knew that, you know what, you would be willing to sacrifice Canadian jobs, income, revenue, all of these things in appeasement of those Eastern voters. And so this is the sort of beauty of my party is that we're never going to run in Ontario and Quebec. So I don't have to make promises to those voters. All I have to do is make promises to the voters who are going to vote for me. And I get to stand up for their interests and what I believe in. I don't have to flip-flop. I don't have to try to promise everything to, you know, all of our provinces and territories. All I have to do is stay true to those provinces that I've said that I'm going to represent, right? And you know, and so that's sort of the beauty of this party. And like I said, it's very similar to the Reform Party. The Reform Party got 0 seats. The next seat it got 52 seats. It was very close to being the official opposition party in Canada. In the 1990s, it was only shy a few seats. That was because the Bloc Québécois was very powerful. The Bloc Québécois was the official opposition at that point. And that was when, you know, Quebec was doing its big separatist movements. But I mean, it just goes to show you the power that regional representation can gain when the political atmosphere is right. And so if you look at voting patterns, and I have, we sort of go in like a decade. That's sort of our pattern, right? So we sort of have liberals in power for a decade. People get sick of them. And then they vote.
That's because they spend so much money. It's the reason they lose every election. The inflation goes up and everything. It's like I said, how Reagan won because people were, and Trump, people were tired of getting reamed by the government, you know. And
yeah, absolutely, right. And so, and then every like about 10 years, people get sick of them and they vote for something else. Usually they vote for the Conservative Party. But if you go back in history, every couple of decades, people get sick of both parties. And that's what I'm finding when I'm out door knocking and talking to people is people say, you know what? My vote has got no voice. It doesn't count. Nobody represents me. I hate all the parties. And so, and every couple of decades, that's when you get sort of a Reform Party coming in. And so I think that we're really poised to, and you know what, I don't expect us to get a lot of seats this election. We're a brand new party. You know, we're less than a year old at this point. But I do think that after a couple more years of the same thing in the next election, people are going to be really, really, really fed up. And they're going to be like, yeah, you know what? Because I mean, let's look at what happened last election out in Western Canada. Most people voted Conservative, right? We won the popular vote. Most people voted Conservative. What's happened for our part of Canada since we did that? Nothing. Nothing happened. We watched projects be halted, killed, held up. We saw our unemployment rate rise by 1 percentage point every single year. Every year that this goes on, now in 2014, before there was Trudeau, our employment rate was just over 4%. Now it sits at just under 12%. So basically every year that we allow this to happen, our unemployment rate rises by 1 percentage point. And these are jobs that aren't being recouped because these are industries and investments that we've killed.
And he promises to put people in green jobs, retrain them and everything, but
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, because we're gonna get, somebody who's working the oil rig out there installing solar panels for $20 an hour. And I mean, give me a break. Where is this tech coming from? We all know where it's coming from. It's coming from slave
that's the whole
labor.
problem with the whole plan is they didn't do the research to make it viable.
It's coming from slave labor, right? A lot of this stuff comes from, unfortunately, China. We know that the Uyghurs are making these panels.
It's all
We
about
know
profit.
that we know
now.
that things like EVs, everybody's pushing EVs. Okay, well, you know what? The other day I drove 600 kilometers. Some EVs range is 100 kilometers. Do you think if I'm on business and I'm driving 600 kilometers, I'm going to stop and charge my car 6 times along the way? Like, give me a break, right? And where am I going to charge it? Where am I going to charge it? In rural Canada. So everybody's like, EVs, we're going to do EVs by 2035. Okay, that's great. Let's look at how many chargers we have across Canada. We have 17,000 chargers across Canada. Big deal. Look at our population, right? 37.5 million people.
I just had visions of the gas crisis in the 70s. I was alive then, lines, miles to get to the charger, and they take a lot longer than to fill up a car to charge a car.
And that's what it's going to be like. So look at California. So California pursued the same route, right? So in California, they have a population of 39 million people. So it's very comparable to the population of Canada, but it's much more condensed, right? Smaller landmass. So in California, to accomplish their EV dream, they need 1.2 million chargers. We have 17,000. And we think that this is something that's realistic. Now, when they announced funding, and I calculated it out, they've announced like $800 million for X amount of EV chargers. So per charger, it worked out to almost $40,000 a charger. So if we're short by over 1 million chargers, and they cost $40,000 each, how many chargers? Right? I mean, do the math, right? Is this really feasible? And the other thing is that we're talking about California. So California has a condensed population. So, okay, so you're saying that you need over 1 million chargers in California, but your land mass is this big. So if we want to do EVs across Canada and our land mass is this big, how many chargers do we need to make this feasible? We need a lot more than 1 million, right? Let's get realistic, because we're not trying to just go short distances. We're going to cross long distances, right? And so these are the things that they don't think about, and they make all these grand announcements, right? We're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to phase out fossil fuels. We're going to Paris Accords.
Electric vehicles would be more feasible in the city, because people just commuting back and forth to work for long haul trains and all that.
And there might be a purpose for EVs, absolutely, right? I'm not saying that they're not useless, and there may very well be, a demographic that EVs work well for. But that same demographic is probably the same demographic that things like public transportation works well for, right? If you're booting around the city in an EV, you could probably just be booting around on public transit ultimately.
Okay, our studio is in Ottawa, and here's the problem. People buy cars, they pay their insurance, and they think that they built this massive public transit system here, all kinds of light rail and everything. They think people's going to go on the light rail. It's okay if you're going to Centreville there when you're going downtown, and because the parking's outrageous, hard to park. Same thing probably in Calgary. But when you're going like to the strip mall or to the Walmart or something, you want to take your car. And so what you have every day at quitting time or in the morning rush hour is just a clusterfuck of cars all jammed up, and makes the buses run slower and everything. And there's no north-south freeway in Ottawa. All they have to do is build a freeway. The cars run more economical, more pollution free at a higher rate of speed, more pollution feasible at a higher rate of speed. They're working efficiently and everything. But and they could even like in Chicago or Atlanta, they can run the train down the middle of the freeway. We have a road here called you're from out originally, right? The VNA Parkway that runs to Riverside, it goes to Lion Bank. They could connect and they could do like the kid's father did, Trudeau's father did, Senior Trudeau. He took a road and made it into the 40 in Montreal to make another east-west. They could take Hunt Club and do the same thing, but these politicians would rather spend all kinds of money to build this and show what the virtue signaling what they're doing, and people just don't use it. So Maryville Road is like, you might as well visit your car on his birthday in St. Laurent. It's the same way. They got to use their brain when they do. You ask a bus driver in Ottawa and he'll say, yeah, this is true. It's the right idea, but try to convince the politicians of this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is sort of, are we getting value for our money for all these public transits? I mean, it's a noble idea. But I mean, ultimately, people love their cars. Right?
Canadians seem to be more conscientious to the environment and everything else, and they're good-hearted people, so they're more tend to fall for this than like people in other countries or the United States in particular. I'm speaking about, they're just more by the heart instead of by the brain sometimes, and that's a good thing about them. They're very compassionate. They want to help the whole world out, but sometimes you got to help yourself. You have to help yourself out too. I'm Canadian by birth. I was born here, but I think my dad was a union organizer, and that's what he worked for Jimmy Hoffa and also Walter Reuther. But anyway, what I'm going to say here is you're a woman of the people. You have a good heart too, and you want to help people. You're like Donald Trump, was. You're a woman of the people. And the thing is, a lot of that you're going to be fought by the establishment and by the corporations and big business and the Alberta swamp and the Canadian swamp, let's put it that way, because their mind is on profit and how much power they can get. And if they can outsource jobs, they don't give a shit about some oil worker. Why pay oil worker $20 an hour when they could pay somebody in Asia, $2 or $3 a day? It's just, and get the same product at a cheaper price. It's all about economics and that. And people, it's destroying the country. And there's no pride in what people make anymore. It's a consumer society. There's a lot of different problems there, but you have to be careful about being able to deal with, understand the dilemmas that those people are in. And politics is all about deal making. My mother, helped in the Jerome Kavanaugh in Detroit, his campaign. She was a Democrat. God bless her soul. I feel pity for some of the things that Kavanaugh caused and she caused. And Democrats are always, and liberals is just pretty much the same animal. And Joe Biden and Trudeau seem to be in collusion on everything. It's like a coordinated effort to just destroy gas and destroy Alberta. And
well, I mean, let's look at where Joe is now, though, right? Joe's begging OPEC. And why is Joe begging OPEC? Well, because Joe nixed pipeline projects like Keystone XL his first day in office, and
he wasn't going to visit his mother, you know what I mean?
And and now what's happening? Well, gas prices are rising, right? People are outraged. Well, I mean, what did you think was going to happen? And yours are a little bit ahead of ours, but ours are going to catch up very, very shortly. And so I mean, and this goes back to like international trade and all those things. And so I mean, the big thing is, why is North America not energy independent? Right? Is there any good reason for us not to be energy independent? I mean,
we were under Trump.
There's no
Trump. We were energy independent a lot
like
more.
There's really no good reason, and people don't realize how closely like affordable energy is linked to poverty. Affordable energy has lifted millions of people out of poverty over the world. It is like one of the single most important contributing factors to lifting people out of poverty. Affordable energy. And where do you get affordable energy? Well, you get affordable energy from fossil fuels, right? especially as when you look at Canada, we're very rich in LNG, liquid natural gas. Well, I mean,
That's very we
Quebec just
that's
nipped.
very environmental friendly too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, right? This is the way. We know that LNG is it's a good natural resource. It's a good sort of transition point for us to build on. So, I mean, look at Quebec. Quebec had an LNG plant that was going to be built, a refinery, and they just said, no, we don't want it, right? And then, bam, there it goes. And meanwhile, they're pumping out their hydroelectric and saying that they're have-not province, even though they have a cheap source of renewable green energy generation that most people don't have access to, right? I mean, that's great for Quebec that they have hydroelectric, but a lot of places in the world don't have that, right? They just don't have access to that sort of generation. And we know that a lot of renewables, they're not storable as backup. It's more like an on demand. And so we know that that on demand has to be backed up by something that's not on demand, something that's storable, like a fossil fuel source, right? And that's how our grid is fueled. But I mean, we wonder why North America has become so weakened under Trudeau and under Biden. And that's simply because, you know, we have to realize our natural resources are one of our most powerful exports. People want them. We own these resources, and that's sort of where independence starts with. And I mean, China wants things like our coal and our LNG, right? They want this
Mhm.
stuff. And we have massive trade deficits with China. We know that we import far more than we export. But why? I mean, we have what they need and what they want, right?
And we have what we need to get on
And
the ball there.
we have what I mean, why are we dependent on OPEC in the Middle East for, oil? And we know that, Irving Oil in the East likes to import Saudi oil. Why do they do that? Well, they save a little bit of money by importing cheap crude from Saudi Arabia as opposed to getting Western crude. They save a little bit of money, so they go for that, right? And Irving is a huge company, and they were involved with TC Energy and Energy East. Um, so one of the proposals that my party is putting forward is that we want to start putting tariffs on all of that oil that we're importing, like serious tariffs, and to start saying, no, 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 you don't get to import cheap, unethical oil that isn't held up to the same sort of environmental standards as Canada is. We're going to stop that practice, right? You want to import that oil, you're going to pay to import that oil. Or if you want to, you can source from us and get it for a more reasonable price, right? And so we're trying to sort of get around these workarounds that have been put in place, for whatever reason, by the Trudeau government to feel good, accepted by the United Nations, to be a part of
Passed
the
by
Paris
China,
Accord. Yeah,
passed
exactly.
by China before Canadians. And the last Canada first prime minister that we had, the last great one was Saint Laurent, and that was years ago. He just everybody else has been for themselves or for enrichment, pretty much. Even Harper wasn't completely, Canada first. He was always trying to make foreign deals, and
Yeah, well, I mean,
he
Harper
was a
was,
bit of a globalist. He wasn't completely a globalist, but he did things that a stalwart Canada first, and Burton, the people first wouldn't have done.
no, I mean, I have to give it to him though. At least he was out there trying to cut trade deals with the international community and trying to get our products more to market, right? And try to get us playing. I mean, it's a joke that we were even included in the G7. We're not in the G7 anymore. We're not in the top world's 7 economies anymore. We're 10th place. Okay. we're 10th place in the world right now. That's what's happened in the last
One thing
couple
that
of
we
years,
have that's so
right?
enforced is the Northwest Passage. It cuts it cuts trade to Europe and the eastern coast of the United States, no Panama Canal, and the Chinese, the communist Chinese are monopolizing it. You know, they have a 300-page manual that shows them on our playlist on our channel that shows them how to navigate it unescorted and everything, and they've been given preference by the Trudeau government to have passage there, and you know it's a great asset, and it isn't only but 6 months of the year, and sure they have regulations of what kind of engines go through there. You know, like between you and I think you know I've been hearing rumors that they don't care what kind of engines the Chinese ships have. They've been Trudeau's giving his buddies, you
Yeah, well,
know,
I mean, we keep making these concessions, right, to
exemption.
foreign nationals, who, I mean, let's be serious. They don't have our best interests at heart. They'll turn on us on a dime, right? We sold out the Five Eyes on Hawaii. We've got citizens
People
who are held hostage.
people been wondering
Um,
why you haven't done your weekly. You know, they've been emailing us and everything,
I mean,
and
we
we've
have
been
trouble. We have trouble in Canada. We have trouble in our parliament just saying Taiwan. Like
you
Taiwan
know
is a dirty word, okay? This is an independent sovereign nation that is probably going to come under attack very, very shortly from the Chinese Communist Party, right? And the People's Liberation Army. So, and we can barely say the name of the country. And we see this sort of really weak foreign stance. I mean, it's happening in Afghanistan right now. Obviously, our
Trudeau
failure.
and Sage have been defunding the military for years. Our fleet is sinking in Halifax. You know, there's a big article in McLean's about it a little while back, and nothing much has changed. Some of the ships couldn't even make it to Taiwan from Vancouver.
No,
So,
I mean they have no intention of sort of rejoining the world stage, right? I mean there was a time when Canada was a world leader. We were a world leader. You know, we weren't a massive military superpower, but we
no,
were a world leader.
aided
We
the
stood
ones
up
that
for rights. We had a voice. We did, peacekeeping missions. I mean, under this government, we were supposed to commit 600 people to international peacekeeping missions, right? So Jan said that we were back. So we fell to a historical low. Do you know how many peacekeepers we had at one point? 18. 18 peacekeepers deployed worldwide from Canada, a population of over 37 million people.
since the turn of the
18 people deployed worldwide. And we dare to say that we deserve even a seat on the world stage? Like, give me a break, right? There's no way.
ever since the turn of the century, Canada's turned from a national rightist national country to a leftist nationalist country. You know, it's went from loyalty to the crown and the queen and capitalism and the free world to woke and leftist ideas. It's been going on that way, especially since Trudeau's father Trudeau's father. People voted for the young boy because they thought the young boy would have the balls that his father had, and he doesn't. You know, he folds for every challenge. You know, sits up there and makes excuses, hides things from the people in the government, and then wants to quash their opinion. I'm surprised he isn't. I'm surprised he hasn't shut this off already.
Well, he's gonna try to, Vinny. You know that, right? You know
I
that.
didn't hear you.
Yeah, well, I mean, Pierre Trudeau. Pierre Trudeau is the original Laurentian elite, right?
Yeah.
And we know what
Grew up in a
Pierre.
different time too when things were harder. The kid was handed everything with a silver spoon. He became part of a dynasty and he wants to continue that dynasty. He thinks he has a right to it. That's the problem. He does, everybody knows the problems with Trudeau Jr. little potato there. So
Well, I mean, we all know what Pierre Trudeau, how he felt about the West, right?
yeah,
He gave us the middle finger, like not figuratively, literally. He actually gave us the middle finger, and obviously that's sort of been ingrained in our current
like
PM.
if they were burning down churches, so the elder Trudeau was buying the son of a bitches that were doing it.
But at least he would do something, right? I
Exactly,
mean, he wasn't a weak individual like his son is, right?
exactly.
Love him or hate him, and he did definitely have a beef
He
with.
modernized Canada. He did that. We're still paying for this modernization today. So what do you think our kids are going to pay for after all this money dumped by his son? And money is nothing to him because he grew up with money. He's rich in his own right. He's wealthy in his own right. So I don't
I
know.
mean, they're just kind of hoping that the private sector is going to dig them out of this hole, right? That's their hope. Is that the private sector is going to sort of come through and innovate and dig themselves out. I don't think they have any intention of trying to dig themselves out of it. I think they're going to keep spending until they are put out of power, and they're going to leave a mess for the next government, right? Because that's historically what they've done. I mean, they're going to keep chucking money out, right? Let's keep throwing the
All these things that
income supports out. There's a pandemic, but yet there's not a pandemic because we're out campaigning. I mean, Trudeau was out today. There was hundreds of people around him. So are we in a pandemic or are we not in a
but
pandemic?
he's too high and mighty to answer a
I'm a
journalist's
little bit
simple question.
confused here.
He's too high and mighty to answer a journalist's simple question unless it's his journalist asking him what color his socks is or some childish question like that.
Yes,
Some
yes.
and,
Yeah,
and
well, absolutely. Well, we know he's touring with CBC,
well,
and
that's
we
another
know
thing.
that for whatever reason, CBC has been given rights to moderate the English leaders' language debate once again, and Rosie Barton will be on the panel. We know that
Yeah, we
Rosie
were talking
allowed
about that.
herself to be personally named in a lawsuit against the official opposition party. So, I mean, this is the state of Canadian politics, right?
Amy was talking about that today on Twitter, and she was also at a private conversation with me, and it made it a little light went in my head when she said it. She said that Obama, all these private meetings that Obama and Trudeau had, he coached, and Trudeau didn't rely on the young Trudeau didn't rely on the media when he's first come into office as an MP and everything. And now, ever since had this relationship with Obama there, he's coached him on how to put the media under his control, the same way Obama did, the mainstream, and get them to do his, political propaganda theater and his puppetry and everything. When you control the media, you control the eyes and ears of the people and their thoughts. And that's what we
Sure.
learned that lesson from
Noam
Obama.
Chomsky, right? The medium is the message.
Yeah,
Here's our medium, right?
exactly.
It's our state broadcaster. What's the message? It's whatever they want to twist it as, right? So,
His inclusion with big tech, Bill 36 just, mirrors and illustrates that
oh yeah, I mean, well, Bill
and
36. I mean, thank goodness that's died with the election. But they're going to revive it, right? Let's face it. That's going to
exactly.
be
That's why they can't be putting.
that's going to be priority number one. They've already said it's going to be a high priority on the table once they get
Yeah, because
back
it's
into
what they need to have total
power,
and
right?
absolute control. That and degrade a dynasty. We're in danger of becoming a Trudeauian empire.
Yeah,
And the
no,
thing is,
absolutely, right?
the most important right, the American founding fathers and even our Canadian founders, said that freedom of thought and expression is the most important thing that a free society have. Otherwise, you become serfs. It's like the even if their laws like Article 1, Section 1, that's basically the divine right of king's principle. So you cannot question the government. What good is a constitution where all your rights don't matter because of the first clause in it? They can just take it away. They need unalienable rights here in
Yeah,
Canada.
well, I mean, we already know that our charter and our constitution are weak documents compared to the American one, right?
The
Because
elections too, they
because
should.
we have these kind of weasel clauses, right?
They
where,
should.
our rights can be revoked under certain sections. So, and and that's one thing that I like about my party is we kind of want to dig into our constitution. We're looking for constitutional change. We're not looking
What
for
do you
this.
think about what do you think about election reform where they would vote for you as an individual more than the party? They could still vote a party ticket. You had two ways to vote. I think even sometimes a liberal would do a good job at one thing and a conservative would do a good job at another thing. It
Well,
might be more
well,
fair,
I mean,
fair to the
a
people.
lot of people say election reform isn't going to help us, and I've looked at the numbers, and it's like maybe it's not going to get us what I want. But yeah, there is a lot to be said for sort of proportional representation and just maybe trying something different because we know that the way that we're voting right now, again, we're not getting what we want because we know that even with the popular vote, the majority of the way that the people vote, they still may not get government. So is that fair under any circumstance? No. I believe that the majority of our population, the way that they vote, should be represented in our House of Commons. So, I mean, yeah, and I mean, Justin ran on electoral reform. Of course, he's not going to change a formula that benefits him, right? Like, why would he? But yeah, it's an interesting concept, sort of doing a proportional representation or a ranked ballot, and giving people every riding an opportunity to vote for, not a party maybe, but for an individual,
Or
right?
they could vote for the party too. It was a choice.
You can vote for the party, right? But yeah,
Nomination.
it's more
Yeah.
sort of saying, we're voting for this sort of individual and their values to represent us. So there's a lot of ways to do
I'll
electoral
vote for the whole
reform.
party if we
But
just
as
one.
long as we have a liberal government, we're not going to reform that, right?
Exactly.
There's no way. Why would they? Why would they change something
Especially a
that's to their
Trudeauian,
benefit?
especially a Trudeau dynasty regime there. We're not going to do that.
Yeah, I
We're
mean,
some,
I'm all for, and I like a lot of our senators right now. I'm very happy with a lot of our senators, but and that's something that our party wants to really look at is an elected Senate. Just because traditionally speaking, senators are they're appointed by our prime minister, and
it's the
it's
House of
worked.
Lords.
It's worked okay because we've had a relatively even divide. I mean, the Liberal is the natural governing party, but we've had a relatively even divide of conservatives and liberal appointments. But since Trudeau's been in power, he's appointed more than half the people, or he's appointed more senators than anybody has, ever done. And now he has sort of appointed more than half the seats in the upper house. And he calls them independents, and that's fine. But these independents vote with his legislature almost 95% of the time. So, for one of the first times in history, I feel that our Senate has become extremely compromised because of the way. Oh,
You just got brighter.
sorry, because of the way Justin has been appointing senators and appointing senators. And Alberta was actually going to have a vote, well, we're still going to have it, as to who we wanted to see represented by us regionally. And I think that we're going to have that anyways. But Trudeau just sort of said, you know what? Don't care who you want representing you in your region. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hand pick somebody. And so, he just appointed, I think it was 5 more Senate appointments. And guess how many are Liberal donors? So we know that our upper house, unfortunately, even though I like a lot of our senators, they have a lot of integrity, a lot of them, fantastic individuals. But at this point, and if we're going to continue along this route, I have to really start going towards an elected Senate. And our Senate seats are they're very randomly scattered. So, I mean, keep in mind, so Newfoundland, I'm not sure exactly what their population is. I think it's it's not quite a million.
Interesting. Newfoundland. Amy's from Newfoundland
Okay,
originally.
so Newfoundland, Labrador. So I think it's
It used
maybe
to be
just over 5.5.
in the 1940s. So it's like going to a whole new different land out there. It's an island. It's like a nation unto itself.
It's a fantastic place. It's nothing against them, right? I'm just looking at it from an electoral perspective. But so, population, maybe just under 600,000, I think. So they have 6 Senate seats. Calgary population, or sorry, Alberta population, over 4 million people, 6 Senate seats.
Yeah, that's
right?
the thing.
I mean,
Touching on that subject, Tim Pool made an interesting observation. Here in Canada, they say Trudeau's letting all these immigrants into Canada to get votes from them. But Tim Pool made an interesting observation, and it's very enlightening. Okay, it's not actually the actual votes; it's the demographics of the place. If there's more people there, then the district changes the number of the representatives that district has. So metropolitan areas get crowded up with even more people, then they get larger and they get more seats. That's just the whole trick behind this. Trudeau knows this. The Liberals know this trick. That's why they're so pro-immigration. The problem is they don't vet the people that come in, find out, more, or even train them more what they're going to do when they get here in Canada. And there's nothing wrong with the immigrant coming here and wanting to be a Canadian, but the problem is they're not here to reap the profits what they could be handed. They got to contribute. In the old days, they would put them, in our past and Canadians' past history, they would nation build, they would city build, they would railroad build. Right now, they're just sitting in the majority of them are just sitting in the major metropolitan areas and taking from the taxpayers without doing maybe not the majority, but a great number of them are doing that, where we need every single one everybody, whether an immigrant or a citizen, to contribute for Canada, make Canada great again. I know I'm stealing that from Trump, but it's basically the truth, and independents like yourself and other ones that are going to people that are representatives of people and people, they need to make sure that this happens. That's my personal feeling. I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but I know there's a great majority of us that feel like that.
yeah, well, I mean, I'm not anti-immigration.
Neither am I. I'm
There's a
pro-immigration.
massive, we have falling birth rates, and so we need to grow our population, and immigrants grow it, and we have a lot of skilled immigrants that grow it. So I'm not going to say I'm anti-immigration. Obviously, we all have concerns, and so and I think that the biggest concern that I have personally is that is our immigration process fair? In that, we have people who are sort of on the list. They've been waiting. They've done the work. They've put their time in, and and they're sort of in limbo for years, trying to rightfully gain a citizenship to our country that they've earned. They've worked for it. And then sometimes, occasionally you get people who are able to
wander across that Roxham Road too.
Who are able to bypass these, these safeguards that we've put in to vet immigrants and make sure that we're enriching our culture. And that doesn't mean that we're only taking in people who will benefit our workforce. There's a lot to be said from supporting immigrants by bringing in their family members, their spouses, their children. All of that contributes to sort of whether these people are going to be happy and supported and contributing patrons of our society, right? You don't just bring one person in from another country and plop them in and say, okay, so you're an engineer, we're going to bring you in and we're going to expect you to
Another
contribute.
problem, if they are an engineer or doctor, Andrea, another problem is with they don't let them, their trade unions keep them from it, and the rules of the province
Yeah,
prevent them from entering into the trade they're already trained in when
yeah,
they need to integrate.
absolutely. I mean, how many,
That's
how
a big
many, how
problem.
many Uber drivers have you met? Uber drivers who are doctors, engineers,
I've
right?
met people working as hospital aides that were doctors.
Absolutely, absolutely, right. And so we're not recognizing, and we don't have reciprocity
You know,
as to you know knowledge and education. So there's a huge disconnect. So yeah, we have literally doctors who are coming here who are more than qualified to fill, say, family physician shortages, which exist en masse. And we don't sort of recognize their qualifications. And so what do? They end up driving taxi cabs or working in bars or
part of that
waitressing
problem
or
lies.
driving Ubers. And so these are people who are extremely qualified to set up a family practice. These are people who are specialists in their country. And so when we talk about specialists, we're talking about people who have more than 10 years of education, usually in their specialty. Right. So we have these people who come over and we'll say, well, we're not going to recognize your qualifications.
Exactly. That problem lies with the trade colleges, the government, and the unions. All three of those contribute to that problem you're speaking of right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, and this is one way that we sort of, we always say that we're really pro immigration. We're really accepting, we're accepting. Well, we're kind of like, well, come here, but if you're qualified, we're not gonna accept your qualifications.
Might have took me.
Right?
You
So
might
I
have.
mean, so what does that message send, right? It's sort of like, yeah, come immigrate here. We'll give you, a better chance at life. We're diverse, we're
Not really true.
inclusive, blah, 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 blah. But you
It's
know what? If you're a, if
story.
you're a gastrointestinal physician in Iran or Iraq and you come over here, yeah, we're not going to recognize that you have gone to medical school and specialized for a number of years. And, we're not going to sort of look at any way to utilize your professionalism. So it's all sort of this spoof where it's like, well, we want qualified, skilled people. Well, sure, we want qualified, skilled people, but then what do we do with them when they get here?
Some of our viewers and even
Right?
yourself might have some of our viewers and even yourself might have mistook what I said earlier that I'm anti-immigration. I'm not. I'm anti-immigration prejudice. Like when you come in the same problems we just discussed, the unions, the trade colleges, and everything, they don't recognize these things, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah,
Even
no.
like regular workers, they could be skilled carpenters. They could do that, and the unions stop them from going in because for a number of reasons. I'm not going to get into all of them. Actually, I haven't researched it that much. I've just talked to some of the people that try to do that, like you said, Uber drivers and everything.
Yeah,
Like
no,
me.
I didn't take it as being anti-immigration, but I understand there's a huge amount of frustration. So I've sponsored immigrants before. I've given them, employment, and I've helped them do their immigration documents. I paid a lot of money for the labor market impact assessment. So this is an LMIA form that has to be completed for some people, and 5 years in, even being sponsored and paid by me and having contributed to this country, paid taxes, worked, we're still fighting for citizenship, right? 5 years in, we're at the point where we've got, wow, permanent residency, but still not citizenship, right?
You're kind of like Trump's press secretary in a way. You're a mother. You juggle a lot of things, and you're in politics, and you're also in the media.
I'm
So
juggling a
that
lot now, but no, just to give you an idea of what these people go through, and it's just sort of, so if you go through the proper channels, right? If you're not, I'm not, it's not against refugees or to say that refugees are bad. Obviously, I want our Afghan interpreters and their families brought here as quickly as possible. This is an emergency, life or death situation. But it just sort of, if you don't get these sort of special exemptions, and if you actually try to go through the process to, emigrate to Canada, and it doesn't matter how much you contribute, you are looking at a more than 5-year track to become a part of our society. And that's a long time for people to be working, jumping through hoops, doing paperwork every year, begging. I actually have to be at the there's the Filipino consulate in the morning at 9:30, trying
we
to get
better, we better,
somebody.
we better, we better and wind up the show
We're,
then because
we're gonna have to wind
I
up. Yeah, yeah. No, I
I have
have to. I have
close
to
up.
be at the consulate in the morning, just because I'm trying to get somebody brought into our country on compassionate grounds. It's somebody who's worked for me. It's a family member who has a disability, autistic in the Philippines. And so, the people that I've sponsored to come to our country and to help them get their permanent residency. They have a relative, there's a son who is autistic and he can't get medical treatment. So I'm actually going to visit sort of the consulate and to apply on their behalf on compassionate grounds, and understanding that the people that I've sponsored here are able to pay for this person's medical care, right? These aren't people who are coming here sitting on unemployment. These are people who are sitting here working full time. They've put their dues in, they pay their taxes. This family works full time. And so there's no real reason that they shouldn't be allowed to bring over a family member under these unique circumstances.
I'm going to tell you,
That's
my cousin is a Canadian business owner. He has U.S. citizenship, but he owns a business in Canada, and he even has a hard time coming over. When he owns a business, he pays taxes here. They are very rough sometimes, but for children, they do have compassion quite often.
yeah. And so that's my hope. And like I said, I mean, we have to be careful. We don't want anybody taking advantage of us, right? So there's a line we have to toe, and we have to be exactly. I'm a bleeding heart, right? I'll help everybody, right? But we do have to draw a line in the sand. But at the same time, sometimes I look at these. We have to look at individual situations.
Case by case basis,
Yeah,
exactly.
and there's no reason that we shouldn't look at some cases and say, yeah, you know what, you have, you came here, uh, you had nothing, you worked all during the pandemic. You know what? You didn't quit your job. You didn't take supports. You didn't take income supports, right? You sat there working your terrible jobs in long-term care, which is where a lot of people actually work when they come in. Yeah, a lot of there's a huge amount of women who, when they come in, they work in long-term care and they work in seniors housing and they work in personal
Security
support.
guard.
Yeah, there's a lot of jobs, right? And they're willing to do these night shifts and these awful shifts and do whatever they need to do to stay in this country and contribute. And so, I think that some of these people deserve to have somebody stick up for them and say, yeah,
A
what?
young Mexican guy. He works at a tire shop. He actually he has a room up in the upper floor of the tire shop, and this guy works his ass off. you know, and he goes to school. I asked him why, you know, why did you come to Canada? He says, I want to learn English because I want to be able to communicate with people when I become a member of the parliament or the president of Mexico. This, and I'm going to have him on the show. Actually, his name is Pablo Moreno, and he's
Yeah, that'd be great.
dynamite. You're
He
going to love
sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, you're gonna love
Yeah, no. So, anyways, so yeah, just to give you sort of a perspective on my immigration, yeah, obviously we have to be careful. We don't want people coming in taking advantage of us. And but more importantly, we don't want to undermine the people who actually worked really hard and earned their place and earned their citizenship. And it's not fair to those people who have put those hours in, put that time in, paid their taxes, paid their dues, done their paperwork, and done everything that we've asked of them. And so these people don't really deserve to be put on the back burner.
so many
Um,
newcomers to Canada are so anti-communist too. Like Pablo, here you go, fucking communistas, you know.
well, you know what? And it's funny, when I've been out door knocking, you know who is like the absolute warmest to me? And I'm not gonna I'm going to say newcomers to our country and people who have immigrated here. And it's almost as if I don't want to undermine, lifelong Canadians and say that, but it's almost as if sometimes when you're exposed to different countries and the sort of governments that these people are ruled under, you come to Canada and you see all these freedoms that we get. And it's almost like they appreciate them a little bit more.
And that's why they're bitching the loudest about what's happening these days.
It's almost like they appreciate it a
Like
little bit
Pastor
more.
Arthur,
Like so many people that have been like, yeah, absolutely. I'll sign up for you. I'll vote for you because you know what? I believe in democracy. I love this country. And a lot of these people are not, maybe they've emigrated to Alberta from, other parts of Canada. Maybe they've emigrated from other parts of the world. But I find a lot of the people who appreciate democracy the most are the people who have fled dictatorships. And that just makes sense, right? It's sort of like they look at the fact that they never had this sort of freedom before, and all of a sudden they have it. And it's fantastic meeting these people who have been all over the world. I mean, you've been in Hong Kong, or you've been in Iran, or you've been in Iraq, or you're from Syria, you're from Lebanon, you're from whatever, the Philippines, you're from
I love
the
when Ezra
Congo. I mean, everywhere, right? And it's just amazing meeting these people who
I
are in
love
Canada.
Ezra goes out to the protests and you hear all these people that were under communist regimes and everything speak. It like the one guy that was in the Republican National Convention, the guy from Cuba there, telling them about that, that it just touches your heart how they believe so much in this and they're so disheartened when people, when our government wants to squeeze down the freedom, and be, and they didn't come here for that.
Yeah,
And here for that.
absolutely, right? Cuba. And it's amazing talking to these people, and I feel like these people are some of the people who appreciate freedom of speech, free voting rights, democracy, and they maybe even understand a little bit more deeply than I understand it myself. And so it's very humbling to talk to these people because I'm like, I've never been in a country where,
We're going to be
I've been
portraying.
exposed to that. And so,
Amy wants to get the college girls, our volunteers out there, and we rely on a lot of volunteers and and goodwill in this. We're not a rich. We don't ask for donations here at VNA. We do that. She wants to get a lot of these college kids, these aspiring journalists and aspiring social advocates that help us out. We want to get out there, before the summer and fall, before the warm weather, and get out there and start interviewing some of these people on the street. Send teams out there to do that and hear exactly what you're just talking about right now. What Canadians hear, you know, Canadians are compassionate people, and it might help change, you know, some of the mindset here. I've talked to leftists even who think that things are, you know, not completely right under this regime, and a lot of them are worried about their freedoms to have their BL marches and everything. They're even worried about that, so it's pretty bad, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm worried about my kids' future, right? That's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm running for office. I'm sort of like, if I don't, what's the hill I die on, right?
I was
What's the hill I die on, right?
Amy, Amy and I were both talking to one of Faith Goldie's friends, and we are gonna.
Mhm.
She is so fed up with everything. She's just being a mom now, staying at home, and she don't want to get involved in anything. And she has such good things to say when she's not in a really radical mood, or you know, I think she got a bad rap on a lot of things because she's a very good girl. And we were trying to get her on the show, and she couldn't. You know, she just wants her life to be private now, you know. So I don't know what we're have some interesting guests in the future. You'll be able to talk to them like I'm talking to you now and ask them questions
Yeah,
and
well,
everything.
I think that this is
If you want to get out there and
important. You know, I think that, well, I mean, I'm only going to be campaigning for 36 days, right? And then, we'll have an election and it'll be done. And then, we can sort of hopefully expand on this and all that. And this is really important. And I think that a lot of the support that I get is because people feel that they can approach me, right? Like I'm not Justin Trudeau. I'm not on some pedestal where
that's what I said. You're a woman of the people.
people
So
people can't talk to me. People email me. I'm trying to keep up with my emails. It's kind of brutal. I get like about 150 emails a day. It's
oh,
like
we get at least 400 or 500 a day here.
yeah, yeah.
A lot of
So
them are asking, "Where's Andy?" You
I
know?
get I get a lot, people who want to meet with me, and I'm trying to schedule meetings and all this stuff. And
People out west know you're into politics now. Everybody knows, but out east here in Ottawa, they don't know. They just wonder why you dropped off the face of the earth there.
yes, yes. Well, I mean, it's like I said, it's because I joined this party, and I do believe in this party. And a lot of people say, "Well, you're not going to go anywhere." And you know what? It's okay. I don't have to go anywhere. All I have to do? All I have to do is get enough votes to make other parties notice me. And then they'll be like, do we really want to do the reform thing again, right? Do we really want to think about we're going to lose our seat in the next election to somebody else? Or are we just going to smarten up and start doing our job and representing our constituents? That's all I have to do. I don't even have to win.
Amy saw your
I don't
natural
even have
gifts.
to win to make a difference. All
Amy
I have to do
saw
is
your
get enough
natural
votes.
gifts. Amy saw you, you know, she intuitively saw your natural gifts and capabilities there. And I'm glad that she kind of pushed you to do stuff. And I don't know if she created a monster or not, but there you go. Anyways,
Well, I didn't think
I'm
I was
proud
going
of
to be
you.
running
I
for
myself
office.
am proud of you.
Yeah, but like I said,
I saw some of your earlier, I hope you don't get mad at her. She showed me some of your more doubtful times there in your earlier thing. Oh, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. And she says, sure you can, girl. I have faith in you. As the event has intuitive knack for finding people that got
well,
that
yeah. I mean, you and Amy are both very
where
talented.
you believe
You're
in, you
you're
know, and
you're very much my seniors in this. This is all very new to me.
yeah.
So and yeah, you guys have had a lot of
I'm
faith
your
in
senior.
me.
How I'm twice as old as Amy, you know.
So
It's more platonic than anything, but you know it's just a working relationship. Marriage wasn't always built on solely love. You know, you learn how to love somebody.
all right. Well, anyways,
Anyways, let's give the
I'm
public
gonna I'm gonna sign off tonight. I gotta get my kids
let's
to
give the
day camp
public
at
one of your
8.
break. Goodbye, Canada
But I mean,
kisses, and
what do you think about tonight? Off the camera. It was
I think it was
okay.
very enlightening, interesting. We got the public and our audience got a real sense of you, you know, and not some some Antifa hit piece, like you dancing and doing things. You're a very intelligent, articulate, concise woman. So everything's gonna
Yeah,
go.
yeah. Well, I mean, like I never had any trouble doing that, and it was fun, and
And be expecting in
I'm
politics.
okay. I'm okay to have fun with it, but at the same time, I know a lot of the policy, especially, and everybody said like you're our foreign policy minister, right? Like,
Like, look,
um,
even when Pierre Elliott did his little jig dance there and everything, it's just sometimes that you do that, you're happy for the country, for
and
the
that was
people.
okay, right? And there is a time for that, and I think that, and I said outright, I said, you know what, I'm not going to pull this. And if anybody wants to come after me for it, for having some fun, have at me. And I think that was the right way to approach it. I think it was not to pull the stuff and try to be like, oh, I didn't do this, I'm embarrassed about it.
Right,
Um, and basically, well, I mean, Lori Goldstein and Warren Kinsella both retweeted me, right? And so Lori said, does anybody think that Andrea should not be a candidate because she danced? And so he's talking to like 60,000 people, right? And everybody said, no, we love her, right? So the Sun Media did me a little bit of a solid and sort of put that out, as to, just dare to come after her because she has some fun here and there in between all this madness, right? I'm sorry, at least I'm not out there making promises that I can't keep, right?
right.
I can only do what I can do.
And you're
But
honest.
I'm not gonna fucking promise stupid stuff that I can't deliver on. Okay. What can I deliver on? I can go into Ottawa. I can roast these people who are making these policies. I can vote against them.
Like Kaylee, you
I
can
can
run
put forward
mental
private members
circles.
bills.
Like Trump's press secretary, you can run mental circles around most of them. So don't have one iota.
Yeah, no. So yeah, like I said, I'm not worried about that. I know that a lot of people we're gonna roast me on that. And I was weighing it, and I was like, do I take my stuff down? And I decided to just meet it head on and be
And
like,
that's what
oh,
we, that's
no, you
what,
know
that's
what?
what,
If you want to say that I don't have a right to have fun and spread joy, I mean, let's face it, my dancing videos, one of them has 50,000 views.
exactly. Good PR. Anyways, that's what the country needs, people that don't give up like you, no matter what, in the face of opposition or anything. In both the media and in politics, we need that.
Yeah,
We need
so
we need honesty and sincerity most of all. And
no,
that's
I was like, I think that's the most important point is, and that's why I have a lot of support is people know that I'm a normal person. I'm not a politician. I don't have ulterior motives. Um, I'm doing this because I care. I'm doing this for
and
the
you
right
love the
reasons.
community. You love the
I'm not,
community.
yeah, and I like people, right? I like people. I like the community. I don't care about my paycheck or any of that stuff. And if people told me I was going to do this a year ago, I would have told them they were nuts. But you know what? Here I am. I'm doing it.
A year ago, you would have told him you couldn't do it, like you were telling
Well,
Amy.
well, I told you, yes, and I told Amy, I was like, I can't do this. This is not me.
But you knew in your heart that you had these gifts. They just need to be awakened and
Well,
get you
I mean,
motivated.
yeah, well, Amy has a way of picking these people out, right? And she's picked a lot of people out, and I'm looking forward to actually getting together like a really good show once the selection is done. Between me, you, Amy, Sask and Sunshine,
Yeah,
Proud
yeah.
Army Brat.
We'd love for Les Bless and Sass and Sunshine to come on.
Yeah,
Les Bless.
no, I think it would be, I think it would
A
be
lot
really
of
great.
Americans adore you too. We get emails all the time.
I know. Well, I mean, you know what? Well, I did a talk show the other day with and it was an American talk show. And it was really good to sort of talk to some of our compatriots. We know that U.S. Canadian relationships have not been top notch. They've not been bad, but it's just the fact of the matter is that we are supposed to be the powerhouse of the world, right? Right? We are supposed to be the pillars of freedom.
Yeah, North Americans, yeah.
Yeah, right. The two pillars of North American freedom, right? Canada and the US. We are supposed to be hand in hand fighting against tyranny worldwide. And what do our leaders do? I mean, I don't know. Where was Joe today? I have no idea. Where was Justin Trudeau? Justin Trudeau was out campaigning.
And getting heckled too, so that should tell something.
I don't know. So, I mean, these
So
are
another interesting. I hate to interrupt you again here, but
No, you're
another
good.
interesting point. Another interesting point, and it would tickle me pink because I didn't notice it neither, even though I saw both yours and Tucker's. You scooped Tucker. Amy brought it to my attention. You scooped Tucker Carlson on the Islamic young lady.
Well, I saw that coming a long time ago. What, on Pakistan and Afghanistan?
Yeah, the Islamics.
Yeah, absolutely. And we all know that Iran is funding. So they're not working directly with Pakistan right now, but Iran does their own sort of parallel funding to the Taliban.
That was really a moronic move of Rosie Barton having the Pakistani.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I mean, hey,
and saying to the Canadian
I
public,
don't need to be bowed down to, but that was something that I picked up right away where I was like, this is something wrong. And, a lot of people say, well, what if foreign affairs matter? Well, they do matter because I knew months ago that, Kabul was going to fall. And, I was actually sleeping. I was about to go to sleep and it was 2 a.m. The other night, and my phone pinged, and it was actually somebody from Afghanistan, a journalist, pinged me, and they said, what, wake up, Andy. The Taliban is in Kabul, and so I woke up and I started sending out all these messages saying what, Kabul is falling, da da da, and it was really heartbreaking. It was really. I had been warning Marco Mendocino, Mark Garneau, Sajan, Trudeau for over a month that the fall of Kabul was imminent. It was really awful to get that little. Whenever I hear I sleep pretty soundly, but whenever I hear a ping in the middle of the night, I know that it's sort of somebody across the, in a different time zone. It's somebody in a different part of the world. Usually it's either Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, or in this case, it was Afghanistan. And it was somebody sort of pinging me through a media source saying, what, Kabul is going to fall. Can you start putting the word out? And
you're getting all emotional. Let's close this down. And next broadcast, we're going to talk about the Winnipeg lab and the reasons for hiding it. How's that sound? Because nobody wants to see you cry, and you're such a sensitive competitor.
I know, and I don't want to see it either. It's just really hard.
I witnessed,
and it's hard that
I witnessed Paula Sagan. I had arguing with Amy today. She was feeling a little bit like you. People are criticizing me because I named the wrong president that was active there. She said it was Nixon. It wasn't Nixon. It wasn't Nixon. So.
Well, it's
actually
awful.
But the person she was arguing with said it was Carter. So.
It's awful that these people have to rely on independent media to sort of spread this story around.
Yeah, like the Cubans and Afghanis
right?
and
Like the Cubans, the
trying to
Iraqis,
reach
the Iranians, the
back
Syrians,
the right.
you know, the people in Lebanon, everywhere, right? It's really sad that they can't depend on mainstream media, and they have to sort of, you know, be waking up people like me at 3 in the morning, saying, you know what, Andrea, this is happening. Could you please start to try to put this out and get this out into Western media? And somebody wrote me something in Persian the other day, and it said, the world hears our voices, and they do not care. And and somebody wrote me that, and I was like, you know what, I do care, right? But what can I do? I can't do anything. Elect me, right?
Uh,
Right now, I'm just on the sidelines like everybody else, putting out information, trying to hold our media to account. But ultimately, I can't do anything. I realize I'm very powerless unless I have a voice in our House of Commons, and I can, address some of this stuff head on. So that's why I'm running. Elect me, or I can't do anything.
Great. All right, well, we're going to continue this audience. We're going to continue this with Andrew. We're going to talk about some internal Albertan issues and why the public thinks Trudeau is hiding this. We're also going to bring up. I'm going to bring up myself in the next talk about the sources of the pandemic and what do people really think was it. Was it a planned biological? It's not a conspiracy theory, but it just and some things that make sense. And I've been talking to people,
Oh,
and they
sure.
can.
Well, Rhoda and the WHO and all that stuff. Good topic. We'll see you next time.
All right, all right. Evening. Bonsoir, ce soir. Great
Bonsoir.
talk. Okay, bye bye.
Okay, bye, baby.
Bye bye.